Hi, I'm Jeremy Roberts. You may remember me as Commander Valtaine from Star Trek VI and Star Trek Voyager, and also Mesoclon from Deep Space Nine. And you're listening to Trek Untold.
Hello and welcome back to Trek Untold, the Star Trek podcast that goes beyond the stars. I'm your host, Matthew Kaplowitz. On this week's episode, we're spending some time with an actor named Jeremy Roberts. He's been a cop, a kidnapper, a thug, a biker, a bouncer, the oldest living vampire, as well as a commander in Starfleet. And by the way, I was talking about his roles, not his actual jobs, although he actually did bounce for a little while. And as you'll hear today, he had quite a twisty-turny road that eventually found himself landing in Hollywood and becoming an actor, a job that he never thought he would actually have in the first place. You may remember Jeremy from his two appearances as Commander Dimitri Valtaine, first from Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, serving aboard Captain Sulu's ship, the Excelsior. Jeremy reprised that same character on the third season episode of Voyager titled Flashback. He also appeared in Deep Space Nine as a Jem'Hadar soldier named Mesoclon from the fourth season episode Hippocratic Oath. Outside of Star Trek, Jeremy has had a bustling career with over 100 TV and film appearances, including roles on Hercules, Xena, 21 Jump Street, Matlock, Doogie Howser, Jake and the Fat Man, Seinfeld, Sister Act, The Mask, Renegade, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, 2 CSI series, Charmed, Veronica Mars, and much, much more. Jeremy has crossed paths with some of Hollywood's elite, and has a lot of interesting story from his time on these different sets. So let's grab a cup of tea, just like Captain Sulu, sit back, and enjoy some of these tales from Commander Valtaine himself, Jeremy Roberts. But before we begin this week's episode, if you'd like to support this show, please don't forget to follow Trek Untold on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to get the latest updates and all sorts of other fun Star Trek-related content. You can also check us out on Patreon at patreon.com/trekuntold, where you can support this show for as little as $2 a month. At higher tiers, you can check out the shows before they come out, know about my guests in advance, and even have a chance to ask them questions, among other benefits coming soon. Shout out to our sponsor, Triple Fiction Productions, who create 3D printed toys and prop replicas inspired by Star Trek. Their items come in all shapes and all sizes and are always amazing, but you're going to hear a little bit more about them later on in the show. If you're listening to us on iTunes or any other audio platform that allows for ratings and reviews, please leave us a 5-star rating and a positive review. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to us at youtube.com/nerdnewstoday and give the video a thumbs up and a comment. Doing any of those things help keep this show growing and allow me to continue bringing you awesome guests and great conversations every single week. Now, without further ado, let's beam in this week's guest. Computer, access interview file. And welcome back to Trek Untold. And now joining me on the other side of the screen here, we've got a veteran actor who has been in a ton of things that I am a huge fan of. So this is going to be real exciting today. We've got Mr. Jeremy Roberts with us. Jeremy, how's it going today?
Good. How are you?
It's good to meet you. And I had a lot of fun looking through your resume and watching a lot of shows and movies that I'm a big fan of, and seeing your face and I'm being like, oh my God, I'm going to talk to this guy. So let's just jump right on in here. And I'd love to ask you the question I ask all my guests first. And that would be, Jeremy, what's your earliest memory of Star Trek?
It would have to be the day, well, I heard of it coming up when I was young. I was 11, turning 12, I think, 65, 6, something like that. And this show was coming, and I'd heard about it. So I said, well, let's hit it. And I saw it and loved it and just was stuck.
That's pretty much the story I've heard from a lot of folks. They all just kind of came into it when they were younger, and they actually enjoyed it. And lo and behold, years later, they get to be in it.
That's the odd thing about it, is that I think about it now and I look at it, I go, oh, gosh, that was just terrible. I mean, well, the sets, because the way you see them now, you can tell if it's not completely, and if you're in space and there's no way they could shoot this, it's CGI. And back then it's just, wow, this is the most incredible thing in the world. Space, the final frontier. I mean, it was not even a clue that I was going to get into it later. There was no way I was going to act anyway. It wasn't even a thought.
Oh, that's good to hear, because that actually leads into my next line of questioning, and that's I'd like to get a little bit of background information about you, Jeremy. So can you tell us where you were born, what your parents did for a living and what little Jeremy wanted to be when he grew up, because apparently it wasn't an actor.
No, no, no. I didn't even. I did do a play in junior high school, one of those. Maybe I've forgotten it because it was our town. I don't know what made me think to do this. It was just a credit you had to take in school, and I did this play and was one of the grave diggers. I don't know if you know our town. Grave digger in it, very small part, and I fell in the hole that they had put as a grave on the stage, and that just didn't bode well for my being an actor. I was so embarrassed. I was never going to do that again. So, but anyway, that's later. I was born in Birmingham, Alabama. I had 10 uncles and aunts, and they all tried to remove me from my mother because, back in 1954, you don't have a child that isn't got a father, because I didn't know my father. And I ended up finding out later. It's a whole other story. It's a book, but my mom was a great cook and a Southern lady, magnificent. My dad was a chef. Well, my stepdad, who I met when I was 7. I was at their wedding. We have I think this is just coincidental. I have these pictures of things, we're getting together to do it's Xena.
Yeah, there's
But
just, because you were in 2 episodes of Xena, 2 episodes of Hercules.
can you see this?
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's 7-year-old Jeremy.
That's me right there.
Wow.
My dad. They're both passed away now a couple of years ago, but that's funny. Yeah, I was 7. They got me a little suit and packed me up. And when they went on their honeymoon right after the wedding, they realized that they had forgot to pack up my bag and give it to me, and left it someplace, and they were already gone and we couldn't get to it. So I ended up wearing that for about 2 weeks, that white suit. They just kept washing it.
You were the most well-dressed child pretty much during that honeymoon.
Oh yeah. After that, anyway, I didn't care about my dad. He started teaching me how to cook when he had a chili house in Silver Lake, California. It was a diner, 7-seat. At 9 or 10 years old, he had me out there peeling potatoes and learning how to cook. And one day I was left alone while he went off to the bank or something, make a deposit. And there I'm sitting there cooking fries and burgers and breakfasts, just like any Denny's, and handling the whole thing myself, and realizing, wow, I'm really good at this. So I quit and joined the Marine Corps because I'm not going to be peeling potatoes forever. So, but then I didn't realize Nam would happen, and that just ruined my whole day. After that, I actually went to work for my dad after this, he was a chef at the country club about half a block from Warner Brothers. And the smokehouse is right there too. It's very famous for the stars going in. It's one of those red leather places. I was a lifeguard, and also I worked the 9th hole in the golf course. So the 9th hole, of course, you have to stop and have a drink. And every famous star that ever was walked through there, from, my goodness, Gene Autry, Rudy Valley, to the Bing Crosbys and Bob Hopes and John Wayne. I mean, when John Wayne came through, he ordered the branch water, and I'm bringing a drink to John Wayne.
That's crazy.
It was too much. I still had no idea that I was going to be an actor. I also worked the lifeguard, and they actually required you to wear stuff that you would wear if you were actually a member. They didn't want you to look like a lifeguard. You had to blend in, which, yay. I order my lunch, and I still didn't went back there. I do remember once, it was an Easter celebration, and all the kids, and Rudy, I'm not, anyway, it doesn't matter. Frankie Avalon's kids were there, and John Wayne's grandkids were there, and I taught them all how to swim, which is interesting to me now. I saved all of your kids. And I remember looking up, there's these 5 or 6 steps that coming down into the pool area, and the sun was shining behind this guy who walked in, tall, 6 whatever. I mean, I just looked at him, and then the sun kind of went like that Jesus thing behind him. he steps down the stairs, and I go, man, that guy is going to be famous. Looks wise, he was just going to be it. It turned out it was Tom Selleck, and he just was the Marlboro Man. And I recognized him then. I went, oh, yeah, that's the Marlboro Man. Oh, he's going to be something. I ended up reading for him years later and reminding him of that meeting then. But I didn't get the part. It was Magnum, I think, at the time.
So that is quite a roundabout way, though. That's quite a roundabout road to get into the world of acting, though. Because I mean, you're doing basically a lot of, I don't know, some kind of similar to roles you'll be doing later on. Because I noticed during your career, you did a lot of police officer roles. So I feel like it's kind of fun. You're doing like merchant marines, you're doing lifeguard, you're doing a lot of protection stuff here. So I'm kind of curious, though, like, how do all these things lead you into the road to acting and performing?
I'm thinking it was probably fate in a weird way. When I was teens and maybe 10, 11 in there, I would have a recurring dream. And it happened quite a bit. I've told this story before, but it's just because I can't figure out why anybody would know the future. And I had a dream, and the Reader's Digest version, it was me going into a Victorian home, setting my bags down in the front room, and I'm there, and I'm gonna start my life or whatever it is. And that was in American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco. I got into that school and went to San Francisco, found the name with some guys that were also in the school, and had a house there put together as roommates, and we were all and I got it, went up the stairs with my bag, put it down, and went, this is I'm getting chills now. Every time I tell this, I get chills, and I don't understand how it happened. This is the dream. I dreamt that I was going to have this experience of walking into this room, put the bags down, look down the hall, see the other guy in the exact face. It's Kent Adams is his name. Are you out there, Kent? Anyway, Kent Adams. And I didn't know at the time in the dream, it's just a guy, and that face turned out to be that roommate, and with the other guy showing me that room. And that was me at ACT going to school to be an actor. And how would I know that? About 25 years earlier, and 20 years earlier, and every now and then. Is it a God? Is it, I don't know. How can you possibly know the future? It was photographically the future, which says to me, I've done it already once. How could I don't have the intelligence to understand. Is it a God? I don't know.
So some kind of higher calling just told you this is what you got to do.
But actually, the physical getting into acting was just done by a favor. A friend of mine, he had a girlfriend who was a director in Monrovia and 30-seat theater, and they were doing the boyfriend and Laughing. And I was Laughing. It was a TV series on in the 60s. And could you take his place? He broke his leg. He said, "You're in the Indian. You have to play an Indian part of 7-Eleven or something." And I went, "Oh, I can't." He said, "Oh, you can do the accent. You can. It doesn't have to be great. It's terrible anyway." And I went, "Okay, but just for a little while, I'll do this." And when he comes back, and as soon as I got on the stage, said the line, and it was like I accepted Jesus into my life. I knew this is what I had to do. I've got to do this. This is great. You get up. You don't have to be you. And they applaud, and you make people happy, hopefully.
That's quite a switch around from being an Our Town to then being on Laughing. I mean, that's two totally polar opposite experiences also.
Oh, at first was humiliating, but then the other one, I could never look at myself act. So some of these I haven't seen in 25 years. I have to go back and find them and look, because I just couldn't. I don't know. I had a bad opinion of how I acted. And I thought something must be wrong with my opinion of my acting, because they keep hiring me. So I'm going to go with what they think and just don't look at it. I don't know. There's a lot of actors can just get right up there in the dailies or right there behind the camera with the director after they've shot something and watch it all. And I'm like, phew, I'd be quitting. I just think I stunk. But I look back now and I go, "Oh, you're not so bad." Okay. Maybe I'm just old now.
So normally on the show, I'd ask about what your first professional acting gig would be, but it sounds like Laughing was that first role, right? So,
not professional.
So what would you say would be your very first professional role then?
Oh, well, on film and television, it was Hooperman. John Ritter did a what they call the dramedy, half hour and half hour, savory and sweet, I guess. I don't know. So that was the first one. So I robbed him at a sushi bar, and that was fun. Had a line, a joke, and great guy. I miss him.
Yeah, we've actually talked about John Ritter a bunch in this show in the past, and I love hearing about John Ritter. I mean, how was he offset? Was he exactly how he
Oh,
appears like he is on TV?
exactly. I mean, I guess that's what made him. I think what makes somebody a good actor is if you have a lot of yourself in it. Or you've got to be able to. I mean, he's just that kind of a dad, that nice person. I mean, I didn't have to grovel in order to get to know him or talk. Oh, I'm going to talk to the star. Well, I could never do that very well anyway. But he was just so open, friendly, and he was the first one because I never thought. You get through the school and you do really well, and you think, okay, who knows? Hollywood may just go. The camera doesn't like you. You don't know what reason you may not make it or not. So, but I thought, well, if I do get a job, I better at least have one photo signed. So I went to a Hollywood store, and when I got that Hooperman, I said, John Ritter, and they looked through some. I got one, brought it on the set, and finally got up the nerve to ask him, and he signed it for me. I've got it up my wall in another in the den.
Yeah, just gonna
And
ask about
after
that.
that, it was like now I have 200 or 300 of them. And the point was that I didn't think I was ever going to have one signed or a picture.
Was that something that you started to do throughout your career? Was when you were on a show to get like an 8x10 signed by performers?
Oh, I did that for everyone if I
Wow.
could. And then you start to work a lot, and you kind of are just glad you're working, and you forget and you don't do it, and it just becomes. But you come back and you go, "Well, I have like 300 of these people all up," and then I ruined most of them by wanting to be in the photo and have them sign it to me, which completely made it worthless. I mean, if I don't put my name on it, because I could get $50 for this when I'm old and didn't make it. And I didn't think at the time. I'm thinking I got to have proof that I really was in it.
So one of my favorite shows, and one of the things I love to talk about here on Trek Untold that isn't Star Trek, is Murder, She Wrote. And you were in one of those episodes, which was the episode called Test of Wills, a very punny Murder, She Wrote title, because it's about wills, and you can pretty much figure things out from there. But it's one of those episodes that actually doesn't take place in Cabot Cove, which makes it pretty unique. And in that episode, you're there as Sergeant Stokely. So this is a role of you as a police officer, which is apparently a position you were quite a lot in your acting career for some reason.
Well, actually, only in the beginning.
Really? Okay, yeah, I noticed. I noticed like early on, like you were doing shows like you did like Doogie Howser, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, L.A. Law. There's a lot of like police roles early on. I noticed.
Wait a minute, you're right. Wonder Years, I was a cop, but I thought I was more of a murderer, thief, drug addict, alien than anything. But I did do L.A. Law. That's right. I was a cop. Huh.
Yeah,
I'm usually
figure.
chasing cops down the street and then them imprisoning me or shooting me.
Chasing cops or vampire slayers, but we'll get to that a little bit later on. But
Yeah.
so as far as Murder, She Wrote, though, I mean, this episode here, you've got some real veterans that you're working with here. Besides Angela Lansbury, you've got, Morgan Woodward, Gene Barry, Philip Abbott, a lot of like real big character actors in the industry. But again, in particular, I love hearing about Angela Lansbury, so I'd love to hear about your experience working on that set and what it was like being around these luminaries.
Well, to me, these I have it in my mind. It's these 5 or 6 icons. I like the word icon and stars thrown around so much, but these were huge. Angela Lansbury is like, she is one of our oldest living actresses, and they're all passing away now. It's saddening me. Oh, and my wife is looking into the motion picture fund retirement home for me. I'm thinking I'm only 67, but I guess you have to think about that stuff. Anyway, but Angela and them, I remember a lot of it sitting around and just staring at these people, because my mom would wake me up at midnight to watch the midnight movie in Hollywood, and I was a child, so I got turned on the 40s movies, 50s, 60s, just when I was a kid. Not even William Powell's, I just love old movies. So here was Angela Lansbury in all the ones I've seen, and Gene Barry, I mean Bat Masterson, and I don't remember I think what happened was I got to do something with Morgan Woodward later. He became much more a closer friend, or a nice. You don't get to be a lot of friends with people, but for long time, forever. But yeah, He invited me out to the Morgan Woodward. He's, he was. I'm looking at him going, this is the man with no eyes. He's Cool Hand Luke. How am I gonna have a line with him? How am I gonna be able to stand up to this monster acting, and Angela too? And it was remedied for me because by the time they got to my big scene where I'm going to explain stuff that's going on in the tape, these stars, they of course they didn't want to, but the set, they wanted to get them off the set, get them home. And they shot them. So they had the camera over my shoulder, shooting Angela's lines, and then they'd shoot Morgan Woodward's, and then they'd shoot everybody out of it. And then as they finished their shot, they'd go home. And then they'd put in a script girl or a key grip, or not there's anything wrong with them, but it's not the same thing saying my lines. But maybe it would work out because then I wasn't afraid saying these things to these people because it's a grip guy that's hearing it. It's not, Gene Barry. It's not Morgan Woodward. I mean, I actually wanted, you have those glasses? Can you wear them? But they sent them all home, and then I did my lines. So maybe it was better. But it was kind of disappointing when, why? They didn't get to see my stuff. I gave them my best stuff off camera.
Because you did do scenes with them. I just rewatched the episode, and you're there with scenes with them, but I didn't realize that you actually were doing basically separate takes alone as they were all going home for the day. That's pretty crazy.
They weren't even there whenever I talked.
Wow. And did you get to spend any time saying anything? Were you able to muster up the courage to talk to anybody on set that day, or say hello to anybody, shake some hands?
No, except Morgan. I did. I guess because I really liked Cool Hand Luke. He did such a performance without having to say a word. I mean, so no, I was too young, too afraid, and even then I never got over the fact that I did a diagnosis murder. Dick Van Dyke and Piper Laurie. I mean, it was just, I actually almost had a little bit of a breakdown with him. Not really, but where he had to come over and put his arm around me and go, "What's the problem here?" And I'm like, "I'm just saying lines to, da 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 da," and he laugh and he goes, next thing you know, he's they're all just as nice as the one before, like John Ritter. I lucked out, but 99% of the time, the stars were great. And only once or twice are they a little full of themselves. So I lucked out.
That's really great to hear, because you have worked with a lot of really big people. I was going to even ask about Dick Van Dyke later on, so that's great to hear you had a positive experience with him, because I've never heard anybody say a bad word about the man.
Oh, never. And then right when we're done, okay, we finished, let's go to lunch. He's like, I'm ready to turn and go the other way. And he's like, "No, they're gonna have lunch. I'm gonna have lunch with Dick Van Dyke." Oh,
wow.
I gotta call some people. My mom.
That's amazing.
Oh, her. I remember the first time I did something. I guess I was killing somebody. I don't know what it was, but wasn't good. And I called her and asked her what she thought. She's, from Alabama. She had that accent, and she said, "You were good." "Yeah, I just questioned how I raised you, killing those people so good." I'm like, "Mom, it's not real. It's like you're wrestling. It's not real." And of course, that starts a whole fight. Wrestling is real.
Was your mom the kind of mom that took you to see some Southern wrestling?
No, but she'd watch it on TV and hated it whenever I'd come in. And "That's not real, Mom." "Shut up." She got to meet Big John Studd, and that was thrilling to her. He was in The Marrying Man with us. He's like a 6'9", 8
he was
wrestler.
About 6'9".
Oh,
I don't know if you know, Andre the Giant hated that guy because he didn't like that there's another guy walking around that was as close to his height.
Bigger than him. Yeah.
True story. Jeremy, we got a few things to talk about before we get to Star Trek, but there's one in particular that does have a Star Trek connection, and that is Sister Act with Whoopi Goldberg. And again, I just got to rewatch this. I got to watch your scene. You're a biker in the biker bar that Sister Mary goes into. I'd like to hear, how was your day with Whoopi Goldberg? Was that any good? Was she as friendly and warm as everybody else you've worked with at that point?
Yeah. I would really be hard pressed to have anybody act like a star, like you think it would be full of diva. Just business, did it, said your hellos. It was, I'm just in the script. I mean, there was no, I guess it's not much to say on a podcast about it, but she was friendly. I mean, the girl that came in, another nun that sort of has a stop next to me and a little flirtatious thing, she was very friendly and nice, but then she's not the star. I don't know. I didn't have nothing negative at all. All I'm thinking about most of the time is, do I sound real? I mean, they sound real when they talk, but when I don't, well,
Well, I gotta tell you, I was telling my girlfriend that I was gonna be talking to you, and I mentioned you were in Sister Act, and her first thought was actually he was the biker, wasn't he? So she like knew that scene right away. So it's definitely left a pretty indelible mark on a lot of people's minds. And it's a really fun scene. Like the whole scene that you mentioned also got Kathy and Jimmy in it. The other nun, I can't remember her name either, but yeah, it's a really fun scene. But I'm kind of wondering, like there is a line where you guys basically have a little bit of back and forth when Kathy's doing her gravy dance, if you will. Basically, Whoopi gives you this really dirty look. So I've always wondered, was there like a scene that was cut where you and Whoopi like said something else to each other after that happened?
I don't. Oh, my memory. Ugh. It could very well have. Things do get changed. I mean, I rewrote things myself. Oh my God, I can't believe I said that. But yeah, you can. People improv and you say something different, or I probably was right on line. I'm not going to be changing lines with a comedian.
I mean, of all people who would probably go with it, though, I imagine like someone like Whoopi is good at improv. She could probably handle
Oh,
whatever you
sure.
throw at her.
Oh, you probably would have loved it, and I probably did say something things different. I'm just waiting for my line. I hope it gets out of my mouth and I don't stutter and I don't think about anything like, oh, she was in whatever movie or oh, Academy Award winner.
Yeah.
Trek Untold will return momentarily.
Trek Untold is brought to you by Triple Fiction Productions. Triple Fiction Productions produces affordable and unique 3D printed Trek-inspired products from the original series, Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise, and the movies. Ranging from prop replicas to use in a fan film or cosplay, to accessories or playsets for figures in all different sizes, Triple Fiction Productions has got you covered. Past pieces for toys have included large centerpieces like 10 Forward from the Enterprise D, shuttlecrafts complete with working lights, and the Voyager Bridge, with smaller pieces including Borg alcoves, the Genesis device, and the dreaded arch-enemy of Worf, barrels. All highly detailed products are 3D printed and hand-painted in the USA, with new items added all the time, while simultaneously improving their printing quality based on fan feedback. To learn more about their products, visit triple-fictionproductions.net or visit them on Facebook at facebook.com/triplefictionproductions. Want to get 10% off your next purchase? Use code UNTOLD10 at checkout to receive this discount. Not applicable during sales or clearance events. That's code UNTOLD10 to get 10% off action figure dioramas, accessories, and prop replicas. Triple Fiction Productions, taking Star Trek where no 3D printer has gone before.
Hey, I'm Licia Naff, aka Ensign Sonia Gomez from Star Trek TNG, and now Captain Sonia Gomez on lower decks with her own ship, the Archimedes. Yay! I finally got a promotion after 25 years. So anyway, I'm here to talk about drivebydogooders.org. It's a little charity I run where we go to the outskirts of Skid Row, and from our car windows, we hand out basic human essentials like water, wipes, cold stream cheese, socks, tarps, masks, t-shirts, things to keep people warm. So we just think that everyone deserves clean water, some protein, and a way to clean themselves, especially during Corona. We also hand out masks to those who really, really need it, who live in tents on the street, mainly the disabled and elderly who have a really hard time getting to services. And we do all of this with no agenda, just pure giving, no overhead. If you'd like to go to the website and donate, it's 100% tax deductible. And if you click on the donate button, you can go right to the $35 option and pick a signed autograph picture of either the Star Trek The Next Generation or Lower Decks, or Total Recall, where I played the three-breasted mutant hooker on Mars, and that's the X-rated version. Put in the comments section your address and anything you'd like me to write, and I'll personally inscribe it and mail it off to you immediately. And again, that's drivebydogooders.org. Captain Sonia Gomez, signing off.
We now return to Trek Untold.
All right, so Jeremy, let's go ahead and jump on into our Star Trek discussion because we got a lot to dig through here. So your first appearance in the franchise is Star Trek VI. You are Lieutenant Commander Dimitri Valtaine. You got to hang out on the Excelsior with Captain Sulu. So first things first, how did you get cast in Star Trek VI? What was that audition process like?
Well, most of them you go through a casting director reads you, and then if you're the next choice, 4 or 5 they bring to the producers. You go into an office and they'd read you, and I got a call on the day and said to go to Paramount and go to this stage where obviously it was going on, and they were shooting, and I waited in the back. I waited while I watched them. I can't remember what, but when Nicholas, when he was finished, they brought, well, we've got and they read 2 of us, or they had read a couple others, he said, and I was just one of them. I guess the casting said, they've already read a couple, but we're doing it here instead of in the office. Or they don't have time to come over, so we're going to show it to them. So I did the praxis in a line or 2, and he said, fine, he's great. And he walked away like, I got, he had a movie to make, I'm just a couple of lines. So that was it. And I don't think I really spoke to him again. We did our job. And I guess I always looked at, if they don't talk to me, then I'm not doing it wrong, or they haven't found out what's wrong about it yet. So if he doesn't come over and suggest things to me, then I'll just keep trying something.
Yeah, this was Nicholas Meyer, and folks also know that he directed Wrath of Khan,
Right.
which everybody pretty much says is like the best of the original series movies, and there's no arguments for me here. But Star Trek VI is also one that's very much loved, and I'd like to hear some more about Meyer. Like, I mean, you mentioned he kind of just walked away, didn't really interact with you necessarily that much. But in terms of like interacting with other folks on set or interacting with George Takei, let's say on this set, I mean, do you remember anything about like his directing style, or how he was
No.
received by the other actors?
He didn't. I didn't. That you hear about this stuff later. That there was a stink with Roddenberry, and he wasn't thrilled with script or this or that, or he ended up seeing it and liking it later. And they had a difficulty, and I had done a podcast where Nicholas was there too, and he was. But then he's, in this sense, he was so talkative on the podcast, and they're not talkative to to the non-stars. I mean, there's no reason to be making up friendships. I can't imagine having any moment to think and be anything other than the director. Someone said, would you ever want to direct? And I go, oh no, I've seen it. You have to be insane. I mean, I don't know how, why don't you teach acting? You blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I don't know what I would tell them how to do it. And if you're not doing it right, I don't think you can just say, do it right. I had directors that can sit in your ear, they come up to you, and they might in stage, always on stage, they're there to help and talk and work with you if you're having a problem. But if you're doing it right and you're there on time and you're not causing any grief, they leave you alone if you're doing it right. So you don't really have a chance to be as big as I think as big as I look, I guess. I mean, because on a Star Trek thing, you're huge. You're the first person that's going to talk. I mean, am I going to live up to them? Am I as good as anybody doing this? We've got to, everybody does it in Star Trek. They all do the turn. That should be part of these awards when they give it out to best acting. I judged one recently for one coming up in Atlanta, and I judged fan films. And I was suggested to him, the creator, the starter, why don't you do that? You should be like a fun section that says the turn, who won the best turn, because every actor in a Star Trek has got the turn and says something to the director, we've got a weenie in the warp drive, Captain, or whatever. I don't know. So that should be that's off the subject, but I don't think he had a directing style with me. I mean, he didn't ignore us. It was just, this is where you go, and you walk over to him, you say the line. They don't even tell you anything until you do it wrong. Usually, that's the best director. He'll has nothing to say until you, stink. So I try not to stink.
Fair enough, yeah. So, as a kid who was a fan of Star Trek, what was it like actually being on this kind of a set? Was it basically like anything you'd ever done before?
Oh no! Oh God, no! Think of them all, the biggies, the Sister Act, the Mask, or any of them working with Wes Craven. I mean, a horror film with Wes Craven. Come on, and I'm a lead in it. It's just nothing as big as this, and it never has been since. I mean, nothing you could do that's this big and a part this small, and I don't mean it badly. It's just very small, that would have this kind of reaction. Everybody who's in it. because you got to be part of it. And I don't know if everybody has the same feelings I did, because I went and saw the show when it was starting on TV, and I followed it ever since. I didn't jump up and down about the Next Generation, but that's might be just bitterness because I didn't get in it.
Well, you can't say that now without me having to follow up with that. I mean, did you audition for TNG?
No, I don't think I ever did. Battlestar Galacticas, I did the Babylon 5, and I think Babylon 5, I went in 3 or 4 times to where it was like a few of the shows where they were even making jokes. We're going to get you in a part, Jeremy. Ellie Law, Machko said, we got a cot set up in the back. I'd read so many times. He kept trying to get me in it. I don't know. I did end up in it, but I don't know. I'm off the subject now. And seeing that set the first time. I mean, I end up having a friend of ours, my mother-in-law, she passed away. She started dating Frank Gorshin years back. And he was in Star Trek. He was the white face, Let This Be Your Last Battlefield, that episode in Star Trek. He was improv, and I loved it when I grew up as a kid. I used to watch him on Johnny Carson, Jack Parr all the time. I loved that man. Next thing you know, my mother-in-law's, he's marrying. She's going to marry him, date him. And he's at my house at Thanksgiving, and he's having drinks and talking to famous people on the phone, and I'm freaking out. And I'm talking about the Star Trek he was in. And so I'm getting all these things about Star Trek from him, from other people that have been in it also, and then I'm having lunch with Sulu. I mean, it's chilling in a sense to anybody who's that much of a fan. I was a fan, and now I'm in it. And then I'm lucky enough to get into deep space also, and then they wrote a part for me to come back as that part on a Voyager, and it just never got old and tired.
Yeah, we'll get to Voyager in a second, in fact. But since you mentioned going to lunch with Sulu, I mean, yeah, you're there with George Takei. He's the captain on the bridge in this part of the film. And you're also there with Grace Lee Whitney, who was Janice Rand, and she got to reprise her role for the first time in a long time in Star Trek 6. So, yeah, do you have any on-set memories or off-set memories of both those people?
No, with them, it was just, I remember a perfect little lunch, and nothing could have made it better short of, having lunch with Nimoy across the board. And there's William Shatner, and there's Scotty. And no, I didn't get any of that. I mean, the only time we ever got to sort of meet them was when they put on their costume while they were shooting ours. They stopped it for a moment, took shots of them sitting on the captain's chair. And then we got to meet them. But God, I would have loved to. But then still sitting there, I remember seeing an episode of Twilight Zone when I was younger. Remind you, because I watched that too. Anything space, weird. And he did an episode of that. And it was amazing. And here he's there now next to me. We're having lunch. He eats like anybody else. It's just amazing. He's not different. He's a guy. I know people probably don't want to hear that kind of stuff. He's just like you, just like me. You want him to be bigger, though. I mean, I did. I want him to be like Jim Carrey was big, or Ritter. They just have a personality that just, I love you. That. Yeah.
Now you got to do some fun space acting also in this particular film, which is when you're basically on the bridge and things are getting shot at and you're shaking all back and forth. How would you like the space acting? Did you get any motion sickness doing that?
No, and then it
pretty
doesn't
hardcore
move
stuff.
either. No, I think it's just the cameraman doing this. I think it was before Marvel Comics and the movies nowadays. We were doing it for you,
But was this just like a one-day shoot your part, or how many was it? More than one day?
God, I think it was 2 or 3.
Did you have any hard time remembering any of the techno babble or things like that, or it was just kind of nothing too out of the ballpark for you?
No, I don't remember it being. No, although I mean, because I've had right after that when the movie aired, I remember going out and a couple of times being stopped. And one particular time, these guys stopped. You're in Star Trek. Next thing you know, they bring me over to this guy. The guy could memorize the movie. I mean, he knew mine lines and everybody else's. I was just wow. You're not going to let anything get by you. If I stunk, but yeah, I better remember the lines. But then I did so many Shakespeare's that if you can remember that. I think about it now. When I go back, I haven't had 12 years where I haven't done anything. I retired. And then, I was going to come back right before the pandemic. And the pandemic haven't even stopped. So now I'm getting all ready to go back with doing these. And it's a different world out there. You audition at home. You stick this phone in front of your face. It's just bizarre.
Well, the upside is there are new Star Trek shows coming out, so hey, maybe we'll see you as a new character one more time.
Yeah, or a very old one. My wife has said we're going to have to start sending pictures to the Discovery casting and Picard and even the ones, doesn't Janeway have one? I mean,
she has
Voyager,
an animated series now. Yep, she has a cartoon.
Animated. Yeah, that would probably be where I'd be best.
And I'm grateful too that you mentioned the Voyager episode, because that's what we're going to discuss next, and that is that you got to have a very rare reappearance as the same character in the Star Trek franchise. You got to revive Commander Valtaine in the Voyager episode Flashback. So what was it like basically going back to Starfleet here? I mean, basically, did they just call you up and say, we need you back here? How did that audition work?
Yeah, I think it was a call from my agent, just said you just got a script and I was like ready to read. And went, no, it's better. You're already in it. And I'm like, what? I was beyond thrilled. Because you think, okay, you do a Star Trek and now it's great. Now let's just hope I have a career and keep going. You don't think anything. And then then they did what? I mean, are you sure? And I'm it. Oh, okay, great. And also not once in it do I think I ever remember realizing that I die. But
yeah, that was a surprise too.
Yeah, but it didn't seem, and I don't think at the time I would have mentioned it either to anyone, because the alternative might be, oh yeah, you're right. Let's cut it. Okay, you're out. So
yeah, it is kind of interesting that your character is pretty important in that regard, because your character's death is kind of the crux of what a lot of this episode is about. So did you have any feelings about finding out that your character that you're finally reviving is also going to be dead by the end of like the third act?
No, I guess I was just so thrilled. I got to be in it.
You're just happy to be back in the uniform.
Yeah, I'm just thrilled. I couldn't. You never think, oh well, of course this is going to lead to a series. Nobody, you can't. I know some people that think highly of themselves that think they should have a series, but I don't. I wasn't that kind. I didn't. When they say it now, they say, "Oh, we want to get you back. You could play," and I'm like, "Well, I certainly could be an alien because I do aliens well."
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, there's a few prosthetic roles we'll be talking about in a few moments, in fact. But yeah, so did George or Grace remember you at all from Star Trek 6? Do they recall working with you?
That didn't come up, and I'm probably glad it didn't, because I don't know if I'd want to hear, "Oh, you were in it too? Oh, yeah." No, they wouldn't have said it, because we're just repeating what we did in Star Trek 6 with a little added.
And a little bit of the ad is also going to be the addition of Kate Mulgrew and Tim Russ. And yeah, I mean, you got to work with them pretty intimately also. So, I mean, what was it like with those two folks? I mean, they are masters of what they do.
She's actually, my wife had met her years earlier. She was friends with her and had met her. So it had a little bit easier to talk, and, with my my wife coming on the set and all. And so it made it a little, but then, like I said, it just becomes like normal day. I hate to say it, I'm not being arrogant. It's somebody, like doing a scene with a pal I've known all my life. I didn't move her into the William Shatner land or Leonard Nimoy yet, or Sulu. Oh my, yes.
Oh, there, that's like your audition tape right there for Star Trek Prodigy. That's perfect. You nailed it. So yeah, outside of Commander Valtaine, you also got to do a DS9 episode, which was Hippocratic Oath. And I'm assuming, again, this was just basically, you weren't called in for this one. This was an audition among other people.
Right. Yeah. I luckily by that time, I had lucky to avoid the first step, the casting director, because they'd already known me. So they don't have to worry. They just move you right to the last 4 or 5, depending on how many they take to the producer. And, it might have been a lot easier because I knew that I was going to be completely masked playing this totally encased alien. So most of them, you seem to be able to be easier. I was very shy as a kid. I mean, I couldn't walk into a room. I was very shy. I don't know how I became an actor, but then when I did, I guess it was because I was able to become other people and I didn't have to be me. and it was too hard to be too shy, too nervous, getting before going on stage. It would happen, you'd be nervous, but then once you got out, it was gone. And I think when it happened in film and TV, you have to go to your room and sit there for a half hour while they fix the set. And a lot of people stay in character, and I just can't be an alien crazy that long. Who knows what that would be like? I don't know how anyway. But I found that I was able to, you could go wild. I mean, what did you do on the set today? My kid asked me most of the time. Well, I'm robbing a bank, or I'm flying through the air as a gargoyle of Satan, whatever. Hercules. It's great.
And in this case, you're a Jem'Hadar alien who gets to basically be shot at. As we mentioned, you're playing a Jem'Hadar in this episode, which is an alien, a lot of heavy prosthetics. Was this the first role where you had done this much prosthetic work before? I have to say, I don't remember. Would this have been before or after Hercules and Xena?
I think it was after. Oh, I don't know. I'd have to.
They're pretty close in timeline. That's why I can't remember either off the top of my head.
Gosh, I don't know I know Buffy was later.
Yeah.
But I don't remember. I do. Whoa. Yes, I think they had to put me in a full body for Hercules. And that might have been the first.
Okay.
It was an all-day thing. I mean, you've got a couple of holes here you could breathe through, and then you're in a body cast. I trust you all. Yeah, don't leave me here. Where are you going?
Yeah, getting the prosthetics is a very scary experience from what I've heard. I haven't had it done myself, and I'm pretty happy I haven't. But that's a long process. I mean, do you remember what it was like to basically get the preparations to become the Jem'Hadar and how long that makeup took when you were on set?
It's about 5 hours.
That's a 5-hour makeup job. That's like half your day.
You're there 4 or 3 or something. So by the time you're there 5 or 6 hours, they're all rolling in, just turning the lights on. But you get to know a lot of makeup people. It's fun. I did like that part. And it's only scary when you think about being completely encased in plaster.
Yeah, only scary. That's just only a little bit scary. I mean, for me, that'd be like a nightmare. But for you, I mean, you've done it a bunch of times in your career. So, I mean, it never really bothered you?
No, it's just horrible each time. If I had enclosed the face, no matter how much you said, well, you have a tube. You're fine. I'm like, all I got to do is this, and I'm dead. Anything I could. No, I didn't enjoy it at all, and I never really wanted to do it again, but I would always do it. I did say no to one role. Occasionally, I'll say no to rape scenes or something. I just can't. I can't get into it. It's too weird.
So this episode here, it's directed by Rene Auberjonois, which is awesome because I love Rene. He's one of the guys I wish I got to interview, but this show didn't exist, unfortunately, till after he passed. You got to work with Alexander Siddig, you got Colm Meaney, and then playing your Jem'Hadar boss is Scott McDonald. So do you remember anything from the set? Do you have any on-set memories from your brief time there?
Well, no, just the most obvious. Just the one where I got sick in the makeup. Other than that.
Well, you gotta tell me about that. I mean, that's a whole story.
Oh, well, I was slightly ill the day I came in, and you got a job. You're going to be there if I'm dying. So I'm not going to tell anybody. You hide the sniffles, the coughs. It's just cold. And then the next day, it's gotten so bad. The night before, I'd thrown up at home, and a form of flu was killing me. So I told them about it, the makeup, the next day. They brought the director in, they talked about it with the producers, and they said they just, then they have to call the insurance companies, and we can't put him in this costume without some sort of safety net. So they devised something in the back of it that I could easily be zipped and pulled off if I had to, relieve. And they had baskets set up along the walking pattern that I had in this one scene, to where if I had to stop, I could randomly throw up in various buckets. But and it did occur. I did have a freak out, and I was removed from that, and they gave it to my stand-in, who'd been putting on the makeup every day. Same, and he got to read for it, and he got the part, and he got his SAG card, and he's probably famous now. I don't know his name. I wish if he ever hears these, he can call in and tell us. Who are you now? Because he got to finish it. So, and I watched it lately. I didn't watch it then, but I watch it lately, and I still can't really figure out which is me because they don't ever say, "Hey, Mesoclan." They don't ever say anyone's name, and the only time I can recognize me is most of the voices. Everybody seemed to be doing something down here, like that was that's the way they talk. But I came out like mine. I think there was one line where I say, "What's this?" And I go, "Hey, that's me." I can hear me. But then after that, I didn't save scripts, so I have some of them. I have like your call sheets, but to look back and see if there's any, they had something on this call sheet, I think, relating to having to have that certain piece. Anyway, uh, yeah, so it wasn't fun, but it was throwing up on the set on a Star Trek. I can't really remember. The memory.
Well, kind of moving ahead to a different role. We had already mentioned this one a little bit here. You got to be in an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and you got to play a monster named Kakistos, and that's the episode Faith, Hope, and Trick. How was that makeup compared to the Jem'Hadar makeup? Because I imagine they're both pretty heavy. Which one was worse for you?
Oh, the Jem'Hadar, because it was more enclosed. But I loved the Kakistos. I think it won. I think he won an Emmy for his work for that and others. Yeah, I totally, completely enjoyed that one because it really didn't. I'm not really much different than I was. Just put a big old. It was the same. Yeah, I loved it. Of being the oldest vampire. Oh, come on, Buffy. It's another one of those. Not Star Trek iconic, but they have rabidly magnificent fans.
Oh yeah, the
love that.
Scoobies are pretty nuts out there. The Scoobies are an awesome fan base.
Is that a Scooby? Is that a word?
That's what they
Meaning
call
fan?
themselves. They're the Scoobies.
Huh.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm thinking it might be LOL or OMG or I don't know these. I had a flip phone until like last year. So
Yeah, in Buffy too, you get to have a big fight scene with Sarah Michelle Gellar, with Eliza Dushku. But rewatching it, I do this frame by frame. I can kind of tell when it's not Sarah Michelle and when it's not Eliza Dushku. So I'm curious, how much of the stunts when you guys got to have that fight scene were you versus stunt performers? I mean, were you actually getting in there duking it out with stunt performers, or was
yeah.
it someone else?
They allowed me to do most of it.
Really? Okay.
I don't think. Yeah, I don't think there was much of a stand-in for me because I think it would require a whole other makeup to put them together. But we ended up laughing a lot through that anyway. I did a Charmed episode where I'm being threatened by 3 very 4'8" girls, and I just can't see it, but I know it's in the lines, and I know they're witches, but they're children, they're girls. Anyway. The same with this. We just kept, with this wow voice, and then all of a sudden this little girl, we'd end up cracking up. Like I think I did a Xena once, and we had this big monster fight at the end, big fight scene to end. And as we're going on there and I'm choking her, and next thing you know, I let loose a fart, and it just breaks the whole setup. Because you're struggling and pushing it, thought that was quite funny. Yeah, I actually think it was Xena. It was Lucy, not me.
Sure. Well, okay. Well, we'll blame it on Lucy Lawless. She's not here to defend herself.
No, I had such a crush on her. Oh,
who didn't?
Who didn't? Yeah. Let me a Coke.
I think I have one here actually. I'll get that off camera, but yeah, I mean that was a fun episode. Again, I got to rewatch that, and I was a big Buffy fan growing up, so seeing you in that, I was like, oh my god, I'm talking to this guy. That's so cool. And I was also having another little weird nerdy flashback. Maybe you can answer this for me. I think where you guys filmed that fight scene was the LA version of the Ghostbusters firehouse in New York. Do you recall like what that location was?
No, it was all on the set of a studio. Yeah.
Really? Okay. It's like the interior looked so close to like the Ghostbusters firehouse because they have one built in LA also, and it looked like so close to it. It's amazing. Like, even the door almost looked like it.
I'm trying to rewind the actual sets and all, and it does. If I think about Ghostbusters, this kind of. I'm horrible to watch a movie with. Like you say, you'll go frame by frame. But I don't need to stop. I'm doing it while it's going. I'm telling you about the guy behind the person who's got all the lines, or I'm saying, oh, this guy, I did a book.
You're the running commentary track.
Did you notice the cigarette? It was this long when they started, and it came back here. Oh, it's moving. The cigarette continuity. And my wife says, get out. Get out. Shut up.
And this is like my weird segue, by the way, because I mentioned the Ghostbusters Firehouse in LA because they actually reused it for another movie that you did, which you mentioned already a few times. That's The Mask. I don't know if you know, like in Jim Carrey's, when Jim Carrey goes to that garage to like get his car checked out, that's actually the LA version of the Ghostbusters Firehouse. So this is my weird little segue to get into The Mask here. But yeah, again, I got to just rewatch that because that's on HBO Max, and you got to manhandle Jim Carrey. That has got to be a fun day.
Oh, blast. Absolutely incredibly fun. I mean, I don't remember not laughing so much in my life. He's just he's a Robin Williams. He was Jonathan Winters. He's perfect. He can't, nothing comes out of his mouth that's not funny. But then, I like Dumb and Dumber too. But so he was a day full of just ad-libbed. Like you kind of go, are we shooting a movie? Or are you just getting all these clips because this is going to be a real, someone's going to make money on. I remember I always tell the story of him coming down these long steps at some famous hotel in downtown LA. It's got like 80 steps, and we're inside, and I'm sitting at the bottom or somewhere in the middle. And next he's at the top, and he looks around, and he starts into Donne fa mobile. He does this opera, and I started just jumping in too. And he looks over and he comes down the thing to me, and he starts singing to me, and I'm giving it back to him, and it was thrilling. I can die now, I guess.
Knowing about Jim's love for Andy Kaufman, I've always kind of wondered, like how much of a method actor he was and how much he really got into the characters. So I'm wondering, your first scene you got to do with him in The Mask, it's Jim Carrey, it's him as Stanley Ipkiss. But your second scene with him is he's now the Mask. He's in the big green makeup. He's in the yellow suit. Is Jim Carrey like the same guy in between takes as he is when he's not wearing the makeup? Like, is he still the same crazy Jim Carrey? No change, really?
Not much. No, I mean, it might get a little bigger with that mask, but no. I mean, did you see, probably did, Liar?
Liar, liar?
Liar, liar? Yeah, the outtakes from that were basically what was going on all the time. It was just, he was just trying different things the whole time. And you're just trying to get your line in and not smirk or, it makes it worthwhile. I mean, yes, the money they pay you as an actor and free trips, the first class, the craft services, all that's magnificent and fans. But it's that if you get the chance to be with any of these huge, since I'm not going to get there, I get to be in their presence. I get to serve a drink to John Wayne. I get to, be in Star Trek. You know, a line that I like, I'm going to say, it's in Voyager where I'm talking to Tuvok in the bunk. I've forgotten I had that line. You not Klingons. What's
They were Vulcans.
Well, you Vulcans got to learn to relax, which is something so opposite of them. But I always thought that was a really good line. I threw it off well, I thought, when I saw it again later. You just threw that away. That was pretty good. I guess because you're seeing people like Carrey in them. How can you come up with 1,700 versions of one line? And all of them funny.
Well, I mean, not everybody can be a John Wayne, but not everybody can do what you do either, and that's basically be those people that supply them with the material to help them be the John Waynes, the Jim Carreys of the world. I mean, they all need someone to set them up, right?
I guess. Yeah, I thought we were throwing him out of the Coco Bongo Club, and I think we'd done it once, and then he got up, and I said, "Can I get another one?" Kidding, and he got it. He got it. He laughed. He did another one. I didn't need it. I was just kidding. No, he did it again. He wanted to keep doing it.
And Jeremy, I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff we can talk about on your resume here because there's like over 100 things just on IMDb, and I'm sure there's stuff missing. But I think the last thing I want to talk about, selfishly for myself, is you got to do an episode of Martial Law. And so few people I talk to get to do Martial Law and get to work with Sammo Hung and Arsenio Hall. Do you remember anything from your time on Martial Law?
No, I hate to say that, but I'll be blunt.
My final question's ruined.
No, but I do remember it being very, those movies where a lot of Bruce Lee things are going on, but when they jump to kick you, they seem to stay in the air way longer than physics allow. It just bugged me. And I said, oh, please don't let martial law have anything like that where I've got to jump in the air and look like I'm kicking fighting, but it didn't turn out to be that kind of a part. So, but no, it wasn't that right after Arsenio had his own show?
Yes, that was well
Okay.
after.
I'm sorry. Here's one of the shows that just didn't do anything. Darn.
Well, I've been hoisted by my own petard, or hoisted by my own Picard, maybe in this case.
Picard,
It's a Star Trek podcast, so
Comedy.
Jeremy, I'm going to throw something real fast at you here. Think fast here.
No.
Best day on set. Okay, I'll take
67
it.
years old. We don't think fast.
All right, I'll take it slow then. I'll say it real slow. How about that?
Say it slower.
What would you say was your best day on a set, and what was your worst nightmare day on a set?
Well, we know the worst. Nothing worse than throwing up on camera.
That's pretty rough.
Best, I've got to say pretty much every one of them after that. Every one of them, except martial law. I can't remember anything about martial law. It was obviously a good paycheck. I was so grateful to get it. But no, it sounds terrible, but every other day after that, I mean, I talk about my daughter wanting to go on the set, and most of her life she can't go because I'm going to be killing somebody, or I'm cutting off a tattoo, Freddy's nightmares, you know. It just, you can't have a child. The first thing she got to see was Herbie Fully Loaded, that Disney fantasy car series. And she actually got to go on the set and, you know, enjoy that, having a star for a father, you know, star. But yeah, every day is something. I mean, look at when on the fan side, you're doing a Star Trek thing or a Voyager, all related. And when they come back online and they say, I went on IMDb, this Jeremy's not in Christmas Vacation. He's in everything I ever grew up with. He's in, and I'm like, you remember, oh, I mean, that's a small part, but you remember Briscoe County Jr. or The Pretender, or just name it. I've been in it, but then that's what makes every day. But then I think I got friends of mine like Richard Reilly. Do you know who he is?
I know Richard. We actually spoke on the show last year, in fact.
350 credits.
It's
Man
absurd.
is a phenomenon. I mean, and they're big ones. This guy is, he's something. I mean, I look at the famous old people in the 40s and 50s, and they've got 300 or 400 credits. I realize that movies were shorter and they had shorts and things and stuff, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, Ward Bonds, these are the people that I wanted to be when I grew up. I wanted to be the guest, you know, the one who helps you get to fame, which it is odd that I did have noticed this before, that I have everybody I've ever touched becomes famous. You know, if you're in a
I'm glad
scene
I'm
with me,
interviewing
you're
you.
famous.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Jeremy. I appreciate that.
I know.
Now I've made it.
Now I just have to, as the saying goes, I just touch myself and I'll be famous. But that's kind of creepy. So
I'm not going to say anything about that one, Jeremy. I'm not touching that one. None of that.
Joke died. This is why I'm not Jim Carrey.
So, you know, like looking through your resume and even talk about some of the stuff we did today. I mean, you've worked with basically modern stars. You've worked with stars of yesteryear. You've gotten to work with a lot of big names. And I'm wondering, is there any like piece of advice or any kind of thing that any of these people have ever told you, you know, any of these legends have ever told you, any piece of advice about life or acting that has stuck with you to this day and that you use to this day?
Nobody ever tries to tell you how to act, but they always, I've always got that it's just be yourself. You're going to be the best actor if there's a little bit of yourself in it. You can't help but, if you're a good actor, it's going to be a little of you in it. You just can't. You know how many times you said that same line in your life? Now you're saying in front of a camera. Be part of you. I mean, Kelsey Grammer, Frasier, he is that. My wife was an ex-girlfriend, not dropping names, but they were together 8 years, and she said that's who he is. He is that. He's just a little bit tweaked, a little freakier, you know. In real life, no kidding, on the show. But no instant advice. But other than that one, you know. And of course, then there were the ones that I lived by. You show up on time, you know your lines, you know, and don't complain. And that's what I did. I don't think I was ever late except once in 30 years. Did the lines, and they end up hiring you again. And now on TV, it's different too, because TV, they don't have the time. And if you're going to sit there and take after take, you're not going to get hired again. But I was perfectly happy getting the jobs that I got, and I think that's probably what kept me. I never had the thought that I would. Oh, I want to be famous. I want to be a star. I want to be. I never thought of it. Never. It didn't come up. And then when I got the first job, and I got the first agent, I got the second job, and it just. I'm not complaining because I keep working. So what do I want you to do more of? You're doing for me what you should as an agent, manager, etc. I enjoyed it. Now I'm going to go back, and now I'm going to be famous.
All right, so Jeremy, last thing for today, what is the best part about being a part of the Star Trek universe?
Oh, oh, well, before the last 5 months with the podcasts and people and joining fan clubs and being part of that Trek franchise, it was before that it was the actual being in it. It was the fact that I actually got into something that I don't want to say worship, but loved as a kid, and I'm actually going to be in it. And I was going to be in the first one, not all the others after. It was that one, because I knew that would go away and they would have a new one, and Next Generation was it. And then, but it was that now it's the way the fans have reacted to it. I'm not William Shatner. I'm not any of them. I barely kept the movie started. That's it. That's it. And then there's no need for us to even be there. And so small, but they make it so large. The fans make it incredibly. Well, that was the answer. It was the last 6 months, because the first 15, 20 years, I never did interviews. It wasn't like thrown at you like it is now, because you have this thing, internet, social. Then it was, you go there to the Beverly Hills Hotel and you have an interview for whatever you're doing and kind of thing. That's different. You don't get to see fans. You're not joining fan clubs, or you're not having people come back and say, you've done more than that. I think that's the Star Trek thing. I loved it.
And that's how I found out about you, was through social media, because I saw you in some of the Facebook fan groups that I'm in, and I'm glad that you were there. I'm glad that you were proactive in being on the social media, and that I got to meet you this way, and especially get the chance to do this interview with you, because I got to revisit a lot of my childhood and just looking at how much stuff you did. I mean, there's so much we didn't even talk about. I mean, we didn't even talk about Matlock, and that's probably a whole other story. But there's so much you've done. You've had a pretty amazing career. I mean, all things said, you've gotten to work with some truly amazing people, and I'm just grateful today to spend some time with you and hear some of those stories. So thank you so much.
Let me just say, Matlock was just almost as big to me, because if it wasn't Star Trek, I was watching Andy Griffith. I mean, I am Andy Griffith, the rifleman, Courtship of Eddie's Father. I mean, because I didn't have a dad, in a sense, my stepdad. So I went to these shows and Andy Griffith, and then to be able to go on and not only just meet him and work with him. There's Barney. My God, I'm getting to see Barney. It was just, it was a Star Trek experience before I had it. Amazing. I loved it.
I just love that you had all these really great experiences with so many really big, awesome people. I mean, that in itself is just amazing.
Yeah. I'm very happy, very pleased, very lucky. That's the one big part of business, being lucky.
Well, I'm glad you were lucky. I'm glad I got lucky seeing your Facebook post, or else I would never have known about you either. So I'm glad that we got to do this, glad we got to meet. And I hope one day I can actually meet you at a convention if you're doing those. Have you done any conventions before COVID?
I did one or two when I was in Alabama with my mother and father, when they were, my mother was passing away about 7 years ago. I went and I did one. Somebody saw me in a comic book store and said, "Hey, you're Lieutenant Valtaine." The next thing you know, they're hooking me up to a convention there, and I did a few more. Then I stopped the last 8 years, and then they hooked me up again with another signing agent. I'm doing the Hollywood show next year. I think it's in March or April. I'll be doing that. I got to do one in Hollywood years ago when Frank Gorshin was dating my mother-in-law, and I got to sit there, and there's Frank Gorshin and there's all these other huge stars having this signing, and I like, what am I here for? And I'm, then there's Val Kilmer right next to me, and I'm like, this, I shouldn't even be here. Why am I here? Because look at him. Anyway, that was a thrill. So I'm going to be doing that next year.
Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for chatting today. Tell us about all these great stories. I know we got a whole lot more, but clearly there's a whole lot more we can talk about here. That's like going to be a sequel episode maybe. So hopefully we get to see you in another episode of Star Trek. We get you back here and we'll do the follow-up. So that's the hopes.
That would be great. That would be great. I'm all for that.
All right, well, Jeremy, thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me. It was a blast.
That's it for this week's episode of Trek Untold. Until next time, please don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And if you're in a position to financially support the show, please consider becoming a supporter over on patreon.com/trekuntold, or pick up some merchandise from our Redbubble store. If you're looking for direct links for any of these things, links will be right in the show notes. If you have any questions or comments for the show, or would like to suggest a guest, or discuss any sponsorship ideas with us, send me a message at trekuntold@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to Trek Untold and for continuing to support this show. I hope you'll come back next time to learn more stories about Star Trek and beyond. Until then, I'm Matthew Kaplowitz, and always remember, fortune favors the bold.
Trek Untold is sponsored by TrekSphere.com, promoting fan-produced Star Trek content in all forms, is powered by the RageWorks podcasting network, and is affiliated with Nerd News Today.